Hi, welcome to the Cows Podcast. I'm your host, Hunter Burney. A catalyst is defined as a person or thing that precipitates an event. A catalyst is something that it participates in a reaction, but does not get consumed in the reaction. There's a heart behind this podcast for, people with aspirations. There's a heart behind this podcast for motivated people that want to make a difference, that have a bias for action, that really, truly want to be a catalyst in the environment around them, both professionally and personally, in their homes, in their workplace, and beyond. So welcome to this podcast. I really hope you're enjoying the series that we're in. Welcome to this episode, and let's dive right in. So we're jumping back in this second segment with Blair Nicols of Advance Your Reach. And we, in the first episode, if you didn't listen to it, be sure to go back and catch it before you dive in. We're going to continue in kind of that same thread of the discussion. I just think it's interesting the way Blair's been kind of sharing the Advance Your Reach framework and things like that. And then what came to mind and what you were describing earlier is, I guess in my mind, as someone who's not in that world yet, I would think some an organization like yourself would kind of expect people to come turnkey with everything kind of already in hand. But it sounds like it's the exact opposite, that you all do a very extensive, well done job of helping people craft that through your online course and the coaching and the workshops and things like that. So I was intrigued when you were sharing that, just because that's seems like a very logical approach to actually not only making sure that you're working with the best talent you can, but you're kind of helping to shape that along the way. I like that approach to it, as opposed to, I guess, what I was thinking, like an agency like Advance Your Reach would expect everybody to just come, every detail in hand, ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, our methodology, our tagline is stages are the fastest way to grow your business. So certainly our intention when we started is that people are coming to us with kind of their business, and they've tried other methods of sales and marketing. They've tried Facebook ads, or they've tried, digital campaigns or other things, and they know how expensive it can be to convert customers from those methods. And maybe they haven't tried getting out on stages. And when we talk about stages, I'm talking about Instagram Live, I'm talking about podcasts, digital stages. It doesn't have to be a room with a theater and a stage and a hotel ballroom or a stadium. Obviously, we're talking about all manner of platforms and stages when we say they're the fastest way to grow your business, because you get in front of an audience. So yeah, I think, a lot of the people who might be the fastest to leverage this methodology are the ones who already have their business, and they've figured out their message, and they've got clarity on the audience that they serve, the problems that they solve, and the message they want to bring out to the marketplace to help convert. But obviously a lot of people need help with that. So we found that a lot of people who come into our world are just getting started with a new business, or they've had a couple businesses before. They've been in the corporate world, they've been in other worlds, and they have a passion to do something different. They have a passion to serve. A lot of our community really is mission driven, and they want to transform the world. They want to do something really, not just philanthropic. They still want to run a profitable business, but they want to do it in a way that serves others. So a lot of them are just getting started. So we've realized that our mission is more than just getting people on stages. It's actually helping them build that business. And this podcast is about being a catalyst, and I think stages are a wonderful catalyst to get that message figured out, to get that business model and that product portfolio figured out. There's no pressure like the pressure of knowing you're going to be standing in front of a room in a week or two or a month or whenever it is, and you've got to figure out what you're going to say and how you're going to make the most of that stage. So a lot of people who think, well, I'm not ready for that agency, I'm not a polished speaker, I haven't done a lot of this. Well, there's no better way to get experience than to get out there and do it. And the only way to build a speaking business is to start speaking. You know, I always say speaking begets more speaking. So certainly if you've got a great business and you've done a lot, we've got plumbers plumbers who've come to us, they know their business model. They can be in the yellow pages, they can be online, they can be on those Angie's List or whatever, and they can get customers. But they get out there and get on social media. They're on YouTube sharing their tips and how to do things. They get way more customers through that than they've ever gotten through those other methods. So it doesn't matter what business you're in, you can use stages to grow it. And like you said, if your business isn't fully formed, they can be a great catalyst to help you get those pieces in place. And that direct feedback you get from audiences and experience, sharing your message or trying what works, testing different offers or resources, is what helps a lot of people really figure out their business. So it can really go both ways. But like you said, a lot of times when you think about an agency like I worked in before, they're only going to take people who've gotten a ton of demand for their speaking, and they already are pretty tried and true, and they've got the credentials and everything else, because they're just transactional. They're just brokers. They're just pitching people that, they put them into categories and they add them to the menu, and that's who they can put on a proposal. We're a different type of agency. We're really helping people, coaching them, being their advisors and their strategists, while we're also getting and helping them build that momentum as a speaker. So it's definitely a different business model, and one that I love because I get to do more than just be kind of a broker. I don't want to just be a sales agent like I did for a long time. I like to work with my clients and also help event planners and meeting planners, get the best resources for their event and help them shape that in what we're able to provide to them as well.
Yeah, no, I love that. I was just thinking, like, my intent going into this conversation was definitely more at the macro level of the transformation. And then you talk about going back to 2007. Like, there's a lot of meat on the bone there with being able to talk through what you've seen, and that's more at the macro level. But what we're talking about right here is more at the micro individual level, where you get to be a part and facilitate that transformation. And I don't say that just because it's, sound like I'm cheesy pitching the series name or something like that. Like, that truly is like the definition of kind of getting to step through and follow that journey. So that's cool. I actually didn't know that was like the real methodology, like you were saying, for Advance Your Reach. I think of, talent agencies and think of, more of the transactional side.
Yeah, well, and I love, talking about kind of where it came from, because I started out in New York working for publishers, and people came to me with a finished book. I was working for major publishers. So by virtue of that, the clients that I worked with had already gone through the process of writing a book, getting it the attention of an agent, getting it, bought by a publisher. And so by the time they were coming out into the speaking world, they already had that platform. And that's a big platform to get, booked as a speaker. And that's still a great way. A book is still a great way to build your authority, even if you self-publish. Now, I watched the whole self-publishing evolution. I saw the rise of Amazon and how people can buy and access books so much more easily through e-readers. All of that stuff has been new since I started. When I started, we were sending out DVDs to people, and there's people before me who were sending out VHS tapes. So, a lot has changed, and a lot now, as we started our conversation in the last episode about how people, there was a lot of gatekeepers and a lot harder to get out there as a speaker. And now that there's so many more platforms and ways to do it. So, everything from that beginning where I thought, really you had to be an author to be a speaker, because that's just what I was familiar with, to a lot of times a book is just along the way of your entrepreneurial journey. It's another great tool. It's another great platform. It certainly can help, but it's not a prerequisite. If it's something that can just add to your business, add to your career, and I'd certainly encourage it if it's something you really want to do. But there's a lot of ways you can get out and get your message even without having to write a book, whether you try to do it in a traditional publishing sense or you self-publish or anything else like that.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool. The other thing that kind of goes through my mind, and just to kind of pivot off of this a little bit, is when we talk about that process, that journey, and we're very much talking about entrepreneurs in this sense, and some larger names, business leaders, things like that. I want to encourage, anyone listening and kind of the high performing manager, leader, audience, that Catalyst has, that whether you're an entrepreneur or you're an entrepreneur, within the organization, it's still we're still discussing the important components of, like we talked about consistency. You're talking about just get out there and start speaking. More speaking begets more speaking. That ties directly into the fundamental principles of enriching yourself as a professional and things like that. So I wanted to make that connection because I thought that was kind of important. There's some very good underlying principles in what Blair was sharing earlier about that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think even for entrepreneurs, absolutely, we'll train people in companies just about how to share their message and how to get alignment in an organization around sharing that message. And, as part of helping people build their signature talk, we've trademarked our story braid framework. And it's really a simple formula, and it can work whether you're an entrepreneur or a leader or a manager or just getting started. If you're interviewing, you start by telling your story. You really want to hook people. This is something that I'm still learning because I like to jump in and like to share content and expertise and don't always share my story, but I've shared a little bit about my journey here. And then you tell content and you give people something to do. You give them that call to action, but you end with a story again. So it works for any type of organization, any type of, whether it's a 3-minute pitch or a multi-day event, you want to take people on that same journey as far as telling your story. And definitely leaders and entrepreneurs, can benefit from thinking about the influence they have through stages, platforms, meetings, wherever you're speaking in front of, an audience. You have that opportunity to influence. And, I think you can apply some of the same principles, to whatever business that you're in, whether it's, the story side or how you're providing different things to different audiences and understanding their needs and how you're going to connect with them in the best way.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we're talking about platforms and specifically virtually or digitally over the last, things have really evolved over a number of years, but as we've said already, probably more attention given in the last 12 months. But, I just think about when maybe we put just for a minute, put kind of a pin. We talked a lot about present state in the last 12 months. I love to kind of hear personal and professional journeys along the way. I think that's a lot of what people can connect with, and maybe their current state is, your journey 10 years ago or something like that. What I mean, you've referred to kind of the shift from East Coast to West Coast, but what, as you've made this transition, is there a certain digital platform that you've been most surprised by, or is there a certain part of the shift away from just books to going to stages and live events, virtual events, all that? Is there a certain aspect of that has just been, I don't know, enlightening? It's not probably too strong a word, but just kind of surprising or impressive to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think in this last year, and especially even before COVID, I joined this company that was completely remote. So that was kind of like a new thing. They've been around. There's been companies that have been around for a decade or so that are completely remote, and now we've all gotten a taste for remote working for the most part, I think. And I never had spent so much time on Zoom than I have in the last couple of years, especially the last year. So I think that's not an uncommon thing in this world. I'm not special in that. But before, it's just interesting to think about how much time we either spent not on the phone or even connecting in a real-time way, and how little time was actually spent in video conferencing face to face. And now it's like, with my boss, when I first moved to LA, I'd spend so much time as a chief of staff setting up meetings for my boss, and it'd be like chasing people for weeks, finally getting his like New York itinerary figured out and getting these great meetings, and then they'd get canceled at the last minute. So it'd be like all that time and effort to align all these important people to get to sit down together and know that there's so much power in that meeting. Now it's like you reach out to someone and a second later you can jump on a video conference,
Right.
and there's like no muss, no fuss. It's not, oh, we have to like go through all the assistants and align all these schedules and hope that like, you're crossing your fingers that on the day of no one gets sick or no one cancels. And now it's like, wow, it's like I would have to have planned out for weeks to try to get these people together in one room, and now people can just jump on a conference. So that's been pretty cool to think, all of that effort and time we used to put into these things has really been simplified. I think my journey was more about discovering what I really was passionate about and where I fit best. So I was a literature major in my undergrad, and I went to New York to work in publishing, not knowing, as I mentioned, that the speaking world even existed. I was thinking I'd be like a publicist because I knew I didn't want to be an editor and I'd just be reading alone a lot of the times. There's a little bit of interaction with the author, but it's a more solitary type of job, and it's something that I don't think I would have enjoyed as much. And I kind of fell into this position of working with speakers who were authors at the same time. So I kind of got to be both publicists. I picked up where the publicists left off and got to work with the authors in that regard, and keeping their message, their book, and them out there in front of audiences that, the bottom line for the publisher was just sell more books. For us, it was, supporting the author. But each time, each quarter, there'd be a new group of authors, and a whole new slate of books would be coming out, and we'd have a whole new slew of clients, and it got to be pretty overwhelming to have that many people. Agents typically have lots of clients, and like most of the 80-20 rule, 20% of them are probably consuming most of your time and are making most of the money, and that leaves a big portion of people that I felt like I wasn't really being a great resource for or a great agent for, and they rely on you just the same. So I had the idea that I wanted to move to LA and get my MBA. Since I was a lit major, I thought I should get a little bit more hard business skills and experience and network in LA to be a manager. And that's kind of what drove me through business school, is the thought that I want to work with a small stable of people and I want to do more with them, get more deeply embedded in their careers and help them in all different areas, not just their speaking, not just their books, but, kind of any of their business pursuits. So that's what's kind of drove me along this path, because when I moved to LA, like I mentioned, I was the chief of staff, so I was working with just one person on his speaking, his business. Speaking was really a form of business development. And then as I finished up business school, I went back to an agency to help build their talent list with just a fresh perspective on how they can kind of develop this new line of exclusive talent, because before they were really just brokers for speakers. They didn't have a lot of exclusive speakers for them. And when Molly's Game came out, the movie about Molly Bloom, the poker princess, so to speak, I was like, wow, this is such a great story, and her integrity. If you've seen it, she made some tough choices in the end and ultimately decided to own for her own mistakes and not really throw other people under the bus just to save herself. Mm-hmm. And I just thought she was such a really impressive person. And because I had these connections in publishing, I was able to connect with her publicist, sit down with her a couple weeks later, and we ended up signing her to our agency. So I got to work with her through our agency and be really almost like her manager and get her started as a speaker. To after all the awards were over and things had kind of settled down, I got to launch her as a keynote speaker 3 years ago. So that was my first taste, or not my first taste, but kind of a big rewarding experience of taking someone who I had established this platform for herself through her memoir, through getting her memoir turned into a movie, and then move her into this other space of speaking where now she gets to speak to audiences all the time and motivate them, share her story, inspire them. A lot of them have never heard of her, and then they might have seen the movie, they might have not. So that just has continued to drive me forward to work with people like that, diverse people that the industry might not have thought of as like the message they're looking for, the story that they're traditionally been told, and get to champion them, get them and help them, develop this skill, and understand and navigate this industry so that they can be marketable, translating their story into messages that the corporate world is interested in or this world is interested in. So I love, in part of my career, I get to manage people like that. And on the other side with this agency, I get to help people use speaking to build up their businesses. So I think, yeah, I mean, if you're following something you're passionate about, there's a way to make it professionally viable, and you should just trust your instincts and your gut and keep chasing after what really moves you. Because some people love the agent side and they don't want to manage, they don't want to get that close to people, and they like working with all different types. And other people, they want to play a different part. So I've just been lucky to be on a lot of different sides and try different things out before I got to this place.
Thank you for being a part of this journey. Definitely subscribe, like, check out Be a Catalyst on Instagram and on Twitter. Also, don't forget to check out the YouTube channel where you'll find videos in addition to the Catalyst podcast recordings that give a little bit more context around my heart for training, my heart for seeing early to middle managers and first-time leaders really thrive and be a catalyst in the organization that they're in the project that they are after, everything that goes along with that. So thank you for being a part of this. Tune in for the next episode, and remember, be you, be confident, be a catalyst.